Hi, my name's Steve Usher and welcome to the Experienced Designers podcast. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Experienced Designers podcast. So my two guests today really do embody the ethos of the Design Thinking Conference. The tag of the conference on a yearly basis is through different eyes. And you'll no doubt see the diversity of perspectives when meeting Esther Thole and Jeanne Liedtka in this episode. So both extremely knowledgeable and immersed in their respective work, but just bringing their own views and perspectives on the topic of empathy and design to the conference. So thank you so much for listening as always, and enjoy this special show. So hi Esther, welcome to the Experienced Designers.
Hi, Steve. Well, nice to be on the show, actually. Always wanted to say that.
Fabulous. Well, welcome. So just for the audience, just a quick intro into yourself, a little bit more about your background and what you do.
Well, I'm a freelance science journalist and writer, and I mainly write about chemistry, and then particularly chemistry of living systems, and also lifelike systems, artificial life, stuff that maybe seems alive or not, or used to be alive. Everything surrounding that always has my interest. So it's a combination of chemistry and biology, but also physics and geoscience and archaeology, basically, and paleontology, origins of life, all that. So when it's connected to life and molecules, then I'm in.
You're all in. Fantastic. So just give us a fascinating subject. So just how did you get into this kind of niche focus? What was your kind of journey into that?
I studied chemistry way back. And then I quickly decided that doing research was not for me, but that getting into those stories and learning more about other people's research, and particularly also about their motivations and the questions they are pursuing and why they are pursuing them, that really interested me. And then I got, without a real plan, actually landed some communication type jobs. And then years back already decided to go along on my own, first more as a copywriter, and then recently, the last 8 years, I think, more as an independent writer focusing on the topics that interest me. So I have different outlets that I write for, and some are really for the general audience, some are more for the chemical community, and it varies a bit. It's books, it's articles, but it's also sometimes lectures and presentations and radio contributions, stuff like that. Basically anything to do with getting people interested in science, and then in particularly in this field of science, and sparking their curiosity, basically.
Yes.
Trying to get people to think about stuff they normally don't think about.
Yes.
And grasp the wonder of it all. That's basically
Absolutely.
why I'm still doing this.
Yes. And I mean, obviously, clearly a big passion of yours. So tell me, normally when you introduce yourself to an audience or to people, just is there anything that you would normally not share, or just something that you wouldn't normally tell people about yourself that you'd like to share?
Well, if it was something that I really don't want to share, I'm not going to share it now as well. But I thought about that, and I don't really have that kind of stuff. I'm pretty open, so I'm usually just blurt it all out, and then it's there. So
then it's out. Perfect.
No messages here.
No skeletons. That's okay. That's okay.
No scoops for you. I'm sorry.
So just tell us a little bit about just this year, I guess, 2019. What have you been up to? What have you been focusing on?
Well, this year I've been basically a combination of getting back to what I have been doing before. Last year, my first book was published, so the time before that was really focused on getting that book out. And then when the book was out, it was kind of landing back into normality and thinking about, what was I doing before? So picking up on running projects, writing a lot of articles, but also getting some new projects off the ground. I'm thinking about, we're going to start a podcast based on my book. So I'm preparing for that, and I'm working on a film festival program committee, a science film festival, something completely new, but really nice to do. So it's a combination of what I was doing, talking and reading and writing about science, and some new projects along. So it's a very combined schedule of activities, which I like. To really do different things at the same time.
So I need to ask, because obviously you mentioned it, so just bringing you back to that period of, pulling together the book and constructing it and obviously releasing it, that obviously emotional journey that the authors tend to go on when they're putting their heart and soul into a book. So what made you kind of want to write a book? What was some of the motivation for you?
A basic motivation, I think, is I'm sorry, I'll get that out. A basic motivation was basically what a lot of journalists have, is they always ask themselves, oh, wouldn't a book be nice? A book is really this tangible product of your craft and of what you can do. It's more lasting than just another newspaper article or just another interview or another short story there. So it's basically was a challenging myself to thinking, I can write a nice story in 1,000 words, I know, but can I also write a book that can really capture the imaginations and the concentration of people? So there was a challenge there. Yeah. And then through some ongoing projects, I got asked to basically write a book on creating life from a chemical point of view. Wow. And I thought, this is such a cool opportunity. And so I just got on that opportunity right away and thought, yes, that's what I'm going to do. Yes. And it's a great topic. So it was no problem for me to dive into that. And it was, of course, a lot of work, but it was a really nice experience. And it's a topic that I'll continue writing about anyway. So that was basically the main motivation.
Yes. And what's the title of the book? What's the focus?
Well, if it's only published in Dutch, I'm afraid, but it would translate best as Making Life, how scientists create life in the lab. That's the general title.
Fantastic. Okay, we are in super interesting times, no doubt, in that area.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yes. Is there any connection into? May I ask? Just in terms of the kind of hacking your body, or those types of aspects to it.
In part, yes, of course. Yeah. That's also about trying to get a grip on life, basically, and trying to adjust it. But my book, and also what interests me most about chemistry of living system, is not so much human-centric. I look basically at life as a general concept. So getting back to bacterial and archaeal and unicellular life, that's already challenging enough. So creating life is more on that level than on creating new humans. No, that's... Yeah, big difference there. But the biohacking community and topics, they definitely have my interest out of curiosity. Yeah,
of course. And will the book be published in English at all in the future?
Well, no plans for that. I would love it if it would happen, but right now, no tangible plans on that.
Okay. No. I need to learn Dutch then. So just tell me what's kind of happening in your sphere and your world right now in terms of future developments. Where do you see things kind of evolving and developing? What's some of the interesting things?
Then you're referring to the scientific field I'm writing about.
I am. Sorry.
Well, there's a lot of activity going on in trying to recreate in a laboratory environment first steps that might give a clue onto how the first life emerged on Earth billions of years ago. Can we recreate the conditions that give us a feeling of how, from a system of non-living matter, the transition to a living system might have occurred? There's a lot of work going on in that field, and that's pretty new that chemists are really getting into that. And then there's, of course, the big efforts going on in recreating a living cell, just based on the compartments we know. Can we put them back together and make that cell alive again? Which we're far from that, but those are really big efforts there. In synthetic gel, can we create something that looks and behaves like a living cell that we can, for example, use for the production of chemicals or medicinal ingredients and stuff like that? Those are really hot topics, and new materials that have lifelike properties. Those really are focal areas now where a lot of effort is put into, and that I think will get us some tangible results over the coming years, definitely.
Wow, fascinating. So tell me, let's link it back into where how on earth did you come together with the design?
Good question.
Conference? How did that come together?
Yeah, it's a completely different world from my world.
Indeed.
It was basically through my publisher. Maven Publishing, they have had contacts and have been in partnership with the design thinking group. And on last year's conference, a few of their authors were also presenting there. And so now I got linked to them thinking, well, hey, this might be an interesting opportunity for me to share my views with a completely different audience than I normally do, and for the conference to get something completely different out there. So that's
yes.
So that was basically the connection, which for me was also a bit of a surprise. And go, whoa, this is something completely new.
Fantastic. So yeah, I mean, I know from last year's, I mean, the actors or the speakers, or they get something from it just as much as the audience as well. So I think it's a coming together of.
I expect to learn a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So that's so cool. And so just a couple of things around what are you kind of having looked at obviously at the conference and what's coming up? I mean, anything that kind of really stands out, or anything that's kind of you're interested in for this year's conference?
Well, I'm for me, it's really. Because it is so far away of what I'm normally working with and people I talk to, I'm really open-minded and thinking, well, this is great. I'm going to dive into a topic and a community that is largely unfamiliar to me, which I always find very inspiring, because then you learn the most. It's always interesting to go to a place that you've never been, to meet people that you don't know yet, who work on topics and projects that are completely different from what you're working on. And then I usually find that you always see that there is some kind of commonality. You will find connection somewhere, but where they will be, I don't know. So I'm really very interested in learning about how all these people, the problems they focus on and how they approach a problem. I'm used to talking to people who do it from a scientific perspective, without a concrete problem at hand and with very long time horizons. And I think within this group of people, they're much more focused on now and where are we now and where do we want to get in the coming years and maybe further ahead, and how do we need to do that? So it's much more tangible, I think, than what I usually write about, which is a bit far out there, actually. So I'm looking forward to that.
Wonderful.
And I hope that I can get other people to think about things differently as well, but we'll see about that.
And just any kind of sneak previews, just lastly, any kind of sneak previews or insights into your topic or what you're going to be talking about, without giving anything away? Don't give anything away, of course.
No, I won't, don't worry. No, but when you have empathy as a theme, it is, I'm thinking about, I want to get empathy out of the human domain. I mean, a lot of it will be very human centered.
Yes.
But as I said, the humans are just one persona in my stories, basically. To me, the human is also just this large aggregate of a lot of cells, whereas one particular living cell can do everything as well, be as alive as this whole conglomerate. So the human per se is not so much of interest to me from that chemical point of view. And I would like to show that when you take empathy in a broader perspective, there are so many examples within the realm of living organisms that have this idea of empathy, or whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it empathy or something else, but that there is much more to it than just what we humans think and do. So that I would go on for empathy on a different level.
Fantastic. Well, I'm super excited to seeing you on stage, and thank you. Look, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next month in Amsterdam. So
great. Look forward to meeting you in real life.
Absolutely, and wishing you the best of luck as well. Fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So, Jeanne, hi, welcome.
Oh, it's great to be here with you, Steve.
Fantastic. So thanks very much again for making some time for us today and for us to learn a little bit about you before the event in Amsterdam.
Yes.
So
Can't wait.
Oh yes, it's going to be fantastic. If last year's anything to go by, I'm really excited for what's in store in October. So just for the audience, a quick introduction into yourself and your background.
Great. Well, I am a faculty member at the University of Virginia's Darden Graduate School of Business. By training, I started my career as a very traditional strategist. I worked for the Boston Consulting Group. And then about 10 years ago, I happened to bump into design thinking, and it was love at first sight. So that's what I have been doing for the last 10 years. I teach our MBAs and practicing managers. And I've also done a lot of work online with Coursera and some similar types of MOOCs around the design thinking space.
Fantastic. It does bite, doesn't it? Design thinking when it gets you. Absolutely.
It does.
So just in terms of just something perhaps outside of work, or just something a little bit more about yourself, is there anything kind of you'd like to share about yourself that you don't normally tell people, or anything in addition?
Well, one of the things I absolutely love to tell people at points in time is that I'm an accountant by training. Okay. My first job out of college was in accounting, working for Johnson & Johnson, the Band-Aid people, in one of their manufacturing facilities doing cost accounting. And I think it's such a great story because in part, I think it's why I so love design thinking, because when I was an accountant, I was always told I wasn't one of the creative ones. And I certainly didn't feel creative. And I think that the beauty of design thinking is that it turns out that we're all creative. Some of us just need a bit more help to find the creative part of us than others. And so for me, I think that's why design thinking has been such a powerful thing, especially to teach, because to work with people and watch them discover their own ability to be creative, especially people like me, accountants and engineers and people who've been trained kind of in more analytical ways, to watch people discover that creative side of themselves is just so rewarding.
Yeah, amazing. And what's your view on the future and key developments in design thinking? I'll be fascinated to just hear your thoughts around where is this kind of heading? Where is this developing? Where's some of the avenues or areas that you see evolving further?
Well, I could talk maybe a little bit about the areas that I've been specifically exploring. So I'm not a designer by training, as I said, and so as an academic, some of the questions that have really interested me are, one, what does learning and practicing design thinking do to managers in organizations? How does it change them? I have a hypothesis that though we often focus on the outcomes of design thinking in terms of the changes in the experience we're able to create for customers or users, I think what really creating those transformational experiences hinges on changing the experience of people who use it. So I've been doing some work lately trying to understand how the different tools and the different stages and experiences that non-designers have as they're learning and applying design thinking, the ways in which it changes them and allows them to develop capabilities that they didn't have in areas like collaboration and empathy and things like that. So there's been one area of research that has been very personal, looking at the individual. Yes. At the other extreme, something we're talking a lot about in design thinking these days is measurement. Those of us who experience design thinking, I think mostly just know that it works, right? We have this deep kind of emotional reaction. We can feel that satisfaction. We know it's special. We know that it produces great things, but the things it produces are often kind of invisible to metric systems. Mm-hmm. So they are hard to convince people who have not experienced design thinking. So one of the things that we've been trying to do recently is to really think about how to identify and try and put some more quantitative data around this idea of what are the impacts that design thinking is able to produce, what are the specific aspects of design thinking, and do they relate to producing different kinds of outcomes, and how do we begin to kind of just talk in more traditional business language about the great potential that this way of thinking and behaving has.
Absolutely. And just in terms of kind of this year, 2019, in addition to some of the developments mentioned, what have you been up to this year? Anything you've been kind of just toying around with, or getting your hands dirty with, or anything specific?
Well, I've just finished teaching a group of my MBA students, and one of the things we've been doing there is looking at how, using some personality instruments, some kind of the basic leadership instruments, how they approach design thinking differently, and what that experience looks like. And it's been fascinating to work with students and to look at the very different paths they travel as they learn this methodology. I mean, for some of them, it's very hard at the beginning, and there's a pretty steep increase in the level of comfort they have with it as they learn more of it. And for others, they come in so excited and so revved that there's actually a decrease as they kind of deal with the reality of what it takes to actually do good ethnographic interviewing and things like that. So that's been a fun thing for me lately, to have the time to really focus in on my students' experience and look at the differences across the students and what that means. And
take the learning. Fantastic. So how did you come to hear about the Design Thinkers Conference? How did these two journeys come together?
Well, Arnie and I have been crossing paths for many years, and we've in the past tried to pull off some work together, and the stars were never quite in alignment. And this year, it just so happens that I already had some commitments in Europe, some in Bucharest and Belgrade and Stockholm and all, and so I was able to put together an excuse to be in Amsterdam to have fun at the conference. So really looking forward to it.
Fantastic, and we're definitely looking forward to seeing you up on stage. I'm really interested to hear what you're going to share. And just looking at some of the lineup, is there anything kind of you really kind of excited about or interested in for this year's conference? Is there anything that you wanted to share?
Well, I'm just so fascinated by the approach the conference organizers have taken in organizing the conference. Oftentimes I go to conferences and they're mostly talking heads, right? Mm-hmm. Someone stands up and gives a little talk, then they sit down, someone else stands up and gives a little talk. And the whole design of this conference, the way they're actually focusing on the storytelling and the experience dimension and the way they're crafting the experience for the participants, it's really been a unique thing for me to look at that. And so I'm really interested in seeing what it's like to experience this very creative and unusual design for a conference.
Yeah, definitely. It is an experience. It's emotional, that's for sure. It is emotional. So look, okay, lovely. Well, look, I thank you so much for your brief time today, and just give us a little bit of glimpse into yourself. And I'm sure all those that have already booked a ticket and will be there, experiencing the event, will very much look forward to seeing you up on stage in October in Amsterdam.
Sounds fantastic.
Okay, thanks, Jeanne. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay.
Take care.
I will. You too, Steve. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. And there you have it, another episode of the Experienced Designers podcast. Thank you so much to my guests, Esther and Jeanne. And I hope, you saw the kind of the very much the diversity in backgrounds, and obviously very keen to see what perspectives they bring at the conference next month. So look forward to meeting you both there. So on to next week's podcast. So kind of a little bit kind of business as usual, going back to kind of my long form interviews, where you'll be meeting the lovely Lisa Morris. who I recently connected with, and after a fantastic conversation, we realised there was lots in common, and why don't we jump on a pod and share it with the world? So that's what we're doing, and that will come out next week, so please look out for that. And until then, thank you so much for listening as always, and bye for now.